Ann, you all set? All set? Nine, huh? Okay. Good luck. Okay, good evening. This is a public meeting of the Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals of June 10th, 2013. Tonight, we have two matters before us. One is under the continuances, and the other is under new business. We will start with the continuance. And as I asked everyone the last time we met on this continuance, first of all, any cell phones, please take the time to turn them off now so we don't have any interruptions. Second thing I'd like to ask everyone is, I don't want any outbursts, I don't want any comments, either for or against the petitioner. It would be greatly appreciated. We have a lot to get through, and your cooperation would be more than appreciated by this board. Okay, our first matter is ZB 2013-12. The petition is a special permit. The applicant is Habit OPCO. The property is located at 22 Old Canal Drive. The petition is to utilize part of a currently vacant building for the purposes of operating a narcotic detoxification and maintenance facility pursuant to Section 7.7 of the zoning ordinance. Mr. Leides, before I asked Mr. Leides to address the board, at our last meeting, I had requested a couple of matters for clarification, and our last meeting, just for the record, was May 30th. Requested information regarding two matters. One was the security that's currently at the petitioner's site, and second was the to talk about the public schools as it relates to the Section 7.7. And we also received some communication from the law department in relation to the school matter. So I'd like to start first, Mr. Leides. Could we start with the security update that we had requested?
Sure. Judge Theolides, Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell, Mr. Chairman. First of all, as you just pointed out, where this matter was continued the last time for two specific purposes. Purpose number one was for a report from the program director or security director of Habit OPCO as to any incidents, any problems in their facility in the last 2 years, presumably meaning 2011 and 2012, because we already have reports from the police department about this. And that was submitted to this board, and what the program director reported was that there were no incidents of any serious problems that took place in the facility during that period of time. So that's number one. Number two relates to the schools. And I'm sure this board remembers that I was quite actively making the point that the burden is on the opponents to show that they have schools that qualify as a bar under Section 7.7. And turns out that the law department agrees with me. You have that memo, I have a copy of it, and it says exactly what I said, which is that none of the schools that were brought forth to you at the last hearing qualify under the law to be a bar to my client under 7.7.4. So, as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Chairman, those are the two items that you asked me to bring forth, and they are items that are not really subjects for discussion. Number one, how can anyone who's here this evening have anything to say about what happens about the internal affairs of the company? And number two, who is it that has more authority with reference to the subject matter of whether or not the schools are qualified, the schools, so-called schools, named, are qualified to be a bar? And you know the answer to both of those. So as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Chairman, that's the information that was sought for continuation purposes of the hearing. One, because of the request of Mr. Van Petch, and number two, your request. And as far as I'm concerned, you clearly closed the public hearing the last time, and there is no reason for a reopening of the hearing, or else we're going to start all over again, listening to the same thing all over again endlessly. The facts are in. There's nothing anybody in this room can offer with regard to those two items. Nothing. I'm ready to give you my final closing with regard to, as usually is the circumstance with the board after the discussions take place, with regard to what I see as the final matter for your deliberation. And I am strenuously objecting to the reopening of the public hearing. It's a violation of the law as far as I'm concerned. It clearly is. There is no good reason for it. And to do so is to prejudice my client's case. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so what I'd like to, if we can start with the security first. I believe I had requested to get some more information from your security about the operations of the security at the facility. And what we received, and you can confirm this, we received a one-page document.
Correct.
Basically stating that I have reviewed our internal reports for 2011 and 12 to determine if there were any behavioral incidents of violence at this program. And pretty much in the next paragraph, there's only actually 3 paragraphs, of which they're very short. The theme is there were no instances in those 2-year time period. And this was signed by Jerry Myers, program director.
Correct.
Is Mr. Myers here this evening?
He is.
Okay, could I have Mr. Myers come up, because I have some questions.
Sure. I am going to say that if we get off base, I'm going to stand up and object. I think he's made a report, he's told you he's reviewed the records, and he said that there are no incident reports. So I just a heads up, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Because, and I'll speak to this later, I wasn't given the opportunity to object to an egregious error that took place at the first hearing regarding whether or not I followed the law in applying and going through the zoning process. I'll let us continue.
Okay, so before Mr. Myers starts, I had asked for information. I received basically a summary. You know, I have more questions asked about the operation, not a one-page summary. This tells me kind of a short story, doesn't really give me much to go on. Good evening, Mr. Myers, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine.
Good. Could you describe what the responsibilities are of the security department, and could you also let us know how many total employees there are in the security department?
We have 3 security, full-time security, and most of their job is to maintain traffic and parking order. As you know, we've got 8 spaces in the front that are right on Hall Street, and so there's a lot of backing out and pulling in, and that requires a lot of coordination.
Anything else beyond those 2 duties?
Well, if there were any difficulties with staff or patients, then they would bring that to our attention, yes.
So what would that entail? In other words, what's an example of an action they would have to take, and how would they mitigate it?
If, for example, we got 3 windows, if, for example, one of the windows was closed, either because a bottle was empty or something else was going on, they would let somebody in administration know.
Okay. Yeah, because I've made a couple of observations when I've gone by. I mean, just to get an idea, I saw at least 2, I would assume were security people outside. I was actually trying to ascertain, what their responsibilities were. They just pretty much seemed to be a presence outside, and I can only speak for the outside. So I'm just more curious about, is that really their main function, is to just be a presence outside? Does one gentleman generally wear like a reflective,
Generally, you'll see them with a reflector jacket on.
generally, or all the time?
I would assume all the time, yes.
Okay. Okay, what I'd like to do, Mr. Laddy, is I want to make sure that, I know there was at least one board member that had a question around the security operation, so I'd like to at least let the members have the opportunity if they want to ask any questions, that it just doesn't come from me. Kevin, do you have a question for this gentleman?
I don't have any further questions pertaining to the security.
Gary?
No, Mr. Chairman, all my security questions were answered at the last hearing.
Okay. Corey?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Van?
I do have one question for Mr. Myers. Mr. Myers, in all your time at Habit Opco, you've never seen or anything's been brought to your attention about any physical alterations, altercations, whether it be around the premises or inside or?
No, not inside. If you're talking about around the premises, I'm not sure what you mean. In this neighborhood right here?
Exactly, yeah. Yes,
Sorry?
pretty much on that sidewalk, across the street, around the area.
No.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'm all set, Mr. Laddies. Thank you, Mr. Myers.
Yep, thank you.
So, Mr. Laddies, what I'm going to do next is, in regards to the question around the school, as you had mentioned, we received communication from the City Law Department, the Assistant City Solicitor, Kerry Regan, and I'm not going to go through the whole write-up. It was thorough. I hopefully have a summary here. So in regards to the question was around 7.74, subsection A, narcotic detoxification shall not be located within 750 feet of a public or private elementary, middle, or secondary school. The law department response is that the Stedman Academy, in this instance, which was the only school that actually was mentioned and came before us and was represented, does not fall under the common definition of public or private schools. So that was the first section as far as the school went. Additionally, what we received was I'll call it the consideration of the town of Chelmsford, which this school was located in. And what we received from the law department was, regarding the town of Chelmsford, the board shall not consider the application of the petition outside of city limits. This petition is not under the purview of the board as it relates to the town of Chelmsford. So for any questions that had to do with a radius and a bordering town, we have been told by the law department that we are not to consider the town of Chelmsford in our review process as it relates to this petition. The third thing that I just want to mention too, and it's more for clarification, and I know you did talk about this, Mr. Leides, was the issue around the abutter notices. The legal notices were published in the paper per the legal requirements for the light industrial zone regarding narcotic detoxification clinic. Just want to make that as a matter of record. Mr. Leides did talk about that. and the abutters that are within 300 feet of the petitioner's location, both on the Lowell and Chelmsford side, were sent certified letters indicating that the public meeting, when it would be held, and what the purpose of the meeting was for. So I just wanted to add that, since that was part of the notification and information we received from the law department.
Well, I'd like to clarify that a little more. First of all, and it was very clear to me, and I went back and checked the videotape of the meeting. It became very clear to me from the first moment that Brian Ewing, when he made his opening remarks, said that they made a zoning change and I was not given the proper notice. I was not sent a notice. And then other people, including, I don't see my good friend from Chelmsford, the attorney, here tonight, and I think you can sit down. I'm going to be here for a couple of minutes. I don't think that you need to continue on.
I just had a point of order for the chair when you're done, Attorney.
Well, you go ahead with your point of order.
Sir, what's the purpose?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I know that you indicated not going to, or I should say Attorney Elides noted his objection to reopening the public hearing, and that's not my intention. I know you closed it. My only question is, in light of the fact that the board had additional questions with respect to the school and that issue, if the board will allow me to address them on that very narrow issue with respect to the memorandum that I submitted to give further clarification to the board.
Well, I'm not going to entertain it right now, okay? Thank you.
I don't want to get too far into this, but you know what? The essence, and this is what got me upset, the essence of what happened at that hearing was the charge was made that I violated the law and I did not follow the proper procedure for a zoning amendment. Not this board's public hearings, a zoning amendment. I started a year ago on that process, and I followed the law every inch along the way. And those people who say that that wasn't the case are not informed and have no idea of the law. But worse than that, what they're essentially doing, if that remark that led people to believe that they were entitled to notice is absolutely wrong, and it gave the impression that I, the city clerk of the city of Lowell, Michael Gary, who's charged with the responsibility of giving the notices on zoning amendments, not me, and the city council of the city of Lowell, who checks every time a zoning amendment comes before them, whether or not proper notice was given, all of those people were being accused by these people who said, I didn't get notice. They said that because they didn't know what the law says. I said it at the meeting, but I'll say it again. When you are doing a citywide zoning change, there is no requirement for letter notice, certified mail or whatever, to every abutter. Every abutter in the city of Lowell is over 100,000 people. So the Great and General Court says all that is required is a notice in the newspaper. And it was clearly done and the law was followed. But every speaker, and this is what was asked, you asked the Department of Planning and Development whether or not a notice was required, and they replied, yes, that is not accurate, that is not the case. That if that was a serious question, and it was a serious question, it should have been asked of the law department, not to put poor Joe on the spot, who's not a lawyer and isn't required to answer that particular type of question. So what ended up happening after that, and I went back and reviewed the 5.5-hour tape, more than a dozen of the people who came up here to complain about it all said, and I wasn't, including, by the way, Mr. Daly, who not only was given a notice of this hearing, because his business is within 300 feet, but all of the other people who were within 300 feet got notices of this hearing, but none of them, no one in the city of Lowell was entitled to a mail notice under this separate proceeding that went to the city council of the city of Lowell. That's the fact. And as a result of that, all those other people got up and said, I didn't get notice. And in other words, they said, Eliades pulled a fast one. And one of those people even said, if you remember, and I went back and talked about, this is part of the ball game. This is a fix is on here, essentially charging you people as being part of this whole thing. That's the kind of thing we heard last week, and that's why, among other things, I don't want to open that kind of stuff up again. Thank you.
So the next thing I'm going to discuss is we received some communication since our last meeting, Mr. Eliades, one of which you had given us the report regarding the security. And then we also received from Mr. Maserati was a request for reasonable accommodation. Can you speak to that, please?
I can. I didn't want to, in these proceedings, at any time, get into making this, the law says this and the law says that, and you better do this and you better do that. But the fact of the matter is, it's quite plain to me that if accommodations aren't made for disabled people, and methadone patients are considered by law to be disabled people, the burden is on a community to attempt to find and make accommodations for them to have a facility. So, some people have said in order for that to be an effective part of any litigation that may take place, that there has to be a request for accommodation. Well, I've already made those requests in various written presentations I've made to the board, and I'm going to ask it again tonight for those kinds of accommodations. And let's face it, really, the accommodation we're talking about is to put them in this place and let them operate for the safety of these people. And by the way, you know, how can that be done? 7.7 says specifically that the city will not prohibit narcotic management and detoxification facilities. Will not prohibit. And it says, but it will regulate. Doesn't say what exactly it will regulate, but it says they will not prohibit. Regulation means regulation in the manner, this is the way I interpret it, of its operation. And for that reason, there have been a number of things discussed through 7.7 and the things that it asks for that maybe, I don't agree that they do, that maybe somebody could argue a part of regulation. Let's not forget, we, Habit OpCo, are licensed by the United States Department of Justice Drug Enforcement Agency, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Public Health, the City of Lowell Buildings Department. We go through all of this licensing. These are people who have the knowledge and authority as to how such a facility should operate. And they license them, and they relicense them every single year. Every single year. And I'll have more to say on that later on with regard to whether or not this is properly being done and who might say otherwise. But basically, the fact of the matter is that we've, as I've shown you from the materials that I've submitted to you, it's my opinion, I think it's quite clear that we have met all of the requisite requirements of Chapter 7.7. So, as far as I'm concerned, that's it. That's the material. At the last meeting, you pointed out what needed to be done, and I think that we've made, I'll tell you this, in the 45 years that I've been doing this business and been before your board and the planning board and other boards in Lowell and elsewhere, I have never, ever submitted the volume of information and materials, and you know that because you've been getting them, that I've submitted to you for informational purposes on this facility. There's just a ton of information, and there's more than enough information based on what is outlined in 7.7. I put expert in information or whatever, and I'm going to talk about that again when I'm given the opportunity, but that's it as far as anything else goes, and anyone else having any other, the public hearing was closed. The matters that were on for tonight are discussed or are not discussable. So it's up to you, Mr. Chairman, but anything that goes beyond that, I'm objecting to. Thank you.
Okay, so what my plan now is, well, first of all, let's go back. The reason why I was asking about the letter was, I don't recall the chairman or anybody in this board asking for this. So, no, he asked about, this is front and back, he asked about the security,
Right.
but I also received this separate communication from your petitioner. I didn't ask for this, so,
About the accommodation? Yeah.
yeah,
No,
no, I didn't ask for it, but we received it.
Correct.
So I didn't understand why I got it, but I did get it, as well as I received some other communications, which I'm going to go through.
Okay.
But when I go through the public, when I open up the public meeting again, which I'm going to, because that's what I've been advised to do through the city, there is a couple of matters on here. I'll probably ask that particular person or persons just to get up there, and if they want to add anything else, I'm going to give them that opportunity. That's why I wanted to ask about this, because we didn't ask for it. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, at this point, I'm going to open up the public meeting. Now, for those that were in attendance the last time, I know many of you got up and spoke. Unless you have something brand new that you want to add to this proceeding, I'm not looking for, Mr. Leides, can you let me
I'm sorry,
finish?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Leides, let me finish. Let me finish. Let me finish, please.
Those three items.
So, as I was stating, anyone that plans on getting up, I'm not looking for people that spoke before. We have a record of who was here before. I want everybody, please, use your head when you get up there. Don't have me, basically challenge you. Respect this board, respect the position. I'm giving everybody the opportunity, if you want to speak, with something totally brand new. Because if you start talking and it's repetitive, I'm going to ask you to sit down.
Well, I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that you need a vote to reopen the public hearing, but I just want to make that clear.
Joe, you have any comment to that?
No, I have no comment about the vote of the public hearing. That was not relayed to me whether or not there should be a vote to open the public hearing again or not.
You got anything you want to add?
Now, this streams from the law department, so this board's been advised, due to the new information that we received, to open the public hearing, Joe. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what our guidance was from the law department.
Well, I think that's again, as the chairman said, we can't be repetitive here tonight, but I think that's what should happen. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're going to open up the public meeting now, and first, before we get the public meeting going, I want to mention some of the communications. We mentioned what we received from the petitioner. We also received some communication from the law offices of Scott Console, and this was in regards to the school that we've already talked about. Now, Mr. Console, you got up, and obviously you've already heard what the city's already told us. Because we received this, and because I also received this, if you have something you want to add, I respectfully request that you make it short and to the point. because I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Scott Consall, office is located at 2500 Main Street in Tewksbury, and I will be brief. To the narrow issue with respect to the schools, under 774, I'm aware of an opinion that the board has received from Assistant City Solicitor Kerry Regan. I believe the board has my packet of information. And just very briefly, with respect to the issue of schools, whether or not home schools are considered private schools, you'll see on the first page of my memorandum that I cite Mass Case Law, Care and Protection of Charles. In that case, the court spelled out the steps that a homeschool family has to take in order to be approved by the local superintendent or school committee. And that's necessary, the court said, to find that all children shall be educated, and they said that therefore they would apply the same approval process under General Laws, Chapter 76, Section 1, to homeschoolers that they apply to any other private school. So with respect to the Massachusetts families that attend the co-op, that is a process that they have to go through. And I'm respectfully suggesting to you that under Massachusetts case law, that each family is unto itself its own private school under General Laws, Chapter 76, Section 1. That's my position with respect to whether or not it's a homeschool. The opinion I have from Attorney Regan, and you may have a different opinion. I have an email that was posted on the website sent to Aaron Clausen and CC with Joe Jinowitz. And in that, I don't see where she gets into the specific issue relative to homeschools or not. So I don't know if she's done that in the documentation that you have, if it's different from what I have. But I, again, respectfully assert that the case law is clear with respect to that issue, that homeschools are considered approved private schools within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, so long as they've gotten approval from the local school district. Secondly, with respect to Council Regan's assertion and her opinion that under the holding of Lepanus versus ZBA of Brockton, that the bylaw or the ordinance in one city or town cannot be used against or cannot control the use of property in another city or town, I'd agree with her. In this case, I would argue, however, that this is distinguishable from that case for one very important reason. We're not talking about using the Lowell City Ordinance to control the use of property in another city or town. We're talking about the Lowell City Zoning Ordinance controlling the use of property within the city of Lowell. And the City of Lowell Zoning Ordinance says that you cannot locate a narcotic detoxification facility within 750 feet of a school, a public or private school, as outlined in 774 of the bylaw. So respectfully disagree with Attorney Regan in terms of her application of that case to this situation. We're talking about property in the City of Lowell that's controlled by the City of Lowell Zoning Ordinance, and that ordinance says may not locate within 750 feet of a private or public school. The bigger issue I would argue to the board, however, is with respect to the intent of the framers. If you look at the article of which this is a part, Article 7, Special Regulations, of which 7.7 is a part, it talks about, and these are not my words, so please, I apologize in advance if anyone takes offense at them. These are the words of the bylaw, that in the development of the execution of this section, it is recognized that there are some uses which, because of their very nature, are recognized as having serious objectionable operational characteristics, having a deleterious effect upon the adjacent areas. And it's clear to me that that is why the framers put prohibitions against locating such uses within certain distances of children and schools. They do not distinguish between children in Lowell or children in Chelmsford. I respectfully suggest to you that the fact that the town line happens to fall between these two properties does not impact the fact that the school is within 300 feet of the petitioner's proposed location. We've gone over it, and so I won't go over it again, Mr. Chairman, in terms of all of the hundreds of children that are in close proximity to this location. I respectfully suggest, Mr. Chairman, for this reason, for all the reasons I've stated further in greater detail in my memorandum, I've also included a charter of the school. I've included a sample of their scope and sequence in terms of their curriculum, as well as photographs of the various classrooms and those sorts of issues in the school. I respectfully suggest, Mr. Chairman, this is not the right location for this. With respect to the new issue, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the new issue, the main reason you're being advised to
Counsel,
open this.
You gotta get close wrapping it up.
I believe that there's an argument anyway that there needs to be a reasonable accommodation for people with disabilities. I respectfully suggest to you that that does not mean that the city necessarily has to put a particular use in a particular area, and I respectfully suggest that that's kind of a red herring.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you, sir.
Chairman.
So, just as a reminder, I know some people are real passionate about this, but please, out of respect for all the parties, no clapping. I don't think it's necessary, please. All right, next communication we received was from the Board of Selectmen, and pretty much the board was represented by the chairman, and we received another letter just outlining a few issues here. Mr. Hanson, is Mr. Hanson here? Okay, are you all set? Yeah, I can read that whole letter. Okay, yeah, well, I just want to read it in the record, we received communication from the town. Thank you. Yep, thank you. Mr. Leides, I'm assuming you got a copy, or you were notified of Mr. Eby took a look at your revised site plan for the parking plan.
Yes,
Is Mr. Eby
and
here?
approved it.
Yeah. Is Mr. Eby here? No.
No.
Okay, so no comments? Okay, thank you. And then the last communication we have was from the residences at Stedman Condominium Association. Now, there was a representative for that group. We just received this evening. It's actually a 3-page document. There's a lot of attachments. I've walked through it. I believe everything that was already stated at the meeting has basically been, I'll call it, summarized and updated here. I really don't see the necessity of having somebody come back up here again. I just want to read it into the record that we received it, and there's probably 8 or 9 documents here outlining their concerns for this project. So, is there anyone that wants to speak in opposition to this? And sir, as I've told everyone, please make it as brief as you can.
Thank you. Greg McShane, 1010 Westford Street. That's the corner of Westford and Stedman Street. My father and I own the property. It was mentioned briefly at the last meeting about possibly using the parking lot at the corner of Westford and Stedman as a drop-off, pickup location for the clients of the clinic. I can only assume that that parking lot is my parking lot, my father and I own, that was referenced. I just want to make it clear that my father and I will not allow that parking lot to be used for a drop-off, pickup location for their clients. I just feel that my father living at that location and the 2 tenants that we have, a hair salon with many elderly clients and an insurance agency, it wouldn't be proper or appropriate for them to have a group of people hang around waiting to be picked up or dropped off, whether it be from the clinic or any group of people. It would just be inappropriate for them to be hanging around, and it wouldn't, the clients of the hair salon, I'm sure, wouldn't want a bunch of people hanging around while they're going in and out.
Okay.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? 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 Yes, sir?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Robert Maria. I live at 26 Montview Avenue in Lowell. I own several pieces of property and pay approximately $80,000 a year in taxes. I'm not against the clinic. I'm against the location. And Mr. Eliades, who is one of the best lawyers in Lowell, that's why he gets hired, last week astutely said that within 1/2 mile, there's only 12 homes. He wasn't lying, he was telling the truth. But if you go just 2/10 of a mile more to 7/10 of a mile, there's 84 homes in Lowell. The other statement I object to that the shrewd lawyer said was like almost trying to threaten, saying that we're going to deprive 500 people of their medicine. That's not true. No one's saying not to have a clinic. We're saying not to have it up there. One of the only reasons this is before this board tonight is that the present landlord wants the clinic out of their property because they have other uses which you as a board members are fully aware of. And that's the only reason that this is before the board. There are many other places in Lowell where this clinic would fit into, and we're all for the clinic. It just needs to be put in another location. And please, don't try to stuff untruths down our throat. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Opposition? Opposition? That portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone here would like to speak?
May I just submit some more petitions to you, please?
Sure. Yep. Okay, and you're a representative of the residences at Stedman Condominium Association. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So for the record, we received signed copies. 22 for 22 Old Canal Drive. Okay. Okay. So anyone here like to speak in favor of the, in favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. So Mr. Leides, do you want to do your wrap up at this point?
I do.
We're still going to leave it to the board, you know. Well, let me start first. Any members have any questions, at least of Mr. Leides at this point, based on anything that's been said? Okay, hearing none, if you want to go ahead, Mr. Leides. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I'm going to take a little while, but I had to listen to 3.5 hours the other day and more tonight, so I think I'm entitled to a little time to tell my side of the story. So, I might even put the glasses on for this, and I don't normally read, but this is important enough for me to get every single word in. My clients are being forced out of their current location. They had no option at any price to stay. They then found out that the zoning code specifies that they cannot go anywhere in this city, without a special permit. They're being forced out, and I want to make this clear. After September 30th, that's when their lease expires, they become a holdover, meaning that the landlord can immediately take possession at that time of the premises without further legal proceedings unless possession cannot legally be obtained. If Habit Opco stays beyond September 30th, the landlord can not only take immediate steps to evict them, which he's made clear that he will, the landlord thereafter is entitled under the lease to what's called the extra rent of a holdover, and that is 150%. I didn't say, and if somebody interpreted it that way, that they could stay on month to month to month or year to year to year at 150%. The 150% is a penalty while the landlord is doing his eviction to get them out. So they can't legally stay beyond September 30th without the landlord's permission. So why don't they go elsewhere? Everyone's saying, oh, I don't, you know, it reminds me of the charter school all over again. Oh, I'm not opposed to a charter school. I just don't think it belongs there. Well, I'm not opposed to a healthcare clinic, but it doesn't belong there. Well, the fact of the matter is, they have no other location. In the case of the charter school, when that was going on, 6 or 8 or 10 people came forward and said, I have a location for them, I have a location for them, or whatever. In this particular case, there were 2 people, actually it was for the same property, who said, I have a location for them. And you know what? They have a location for them, but it's not zoned properly. And it would have to go through the same special permit process that we have been going through here. And needless to say, since it's in a neighborhood close to downtown, which is what the city doesn't want, they are the ones who specified that we take the DMU district out of those applicable available uses. Since it's in that area, I'm sure that we'll have the same hundreds of people, because that's the nature of what you're doing with such a facility. So, the requirements, by the way, and I alluded to this before, and I'm going to say it again, the requirements that have been set out here for the operation in 7.7 go far beyond anything the federal government, the state government, or even the city of Lowell puts in force and effect and has put in force and effect against my clients for the last 25 years. They're the people who have the knowledge and the jurisdiction to make conditions in the operation of the facility. So, and as I indicated, even if we found such a qualified available location other than the current one, they'd have to go through the whole process all over again, the filings, all the public hearings, no guarantee. Everyone's saying, oh, you can find locations. There are locations all over the place. They would have to go through that same process all over again, and there's no guarantee of any kind, clearly, that that's going to happen. The bottom line is other people, as has been stated here, and everyone here, is other people want that space that Habit OpCo occupies no matter what. Habit OpCo pays. No matter what, Habit OpCo pays. That's why more than 2.5 years ago, they started looking for a place to move to. Over 2.5 years ago. And they went to the city and let them know, and for help. Thereafter, the city gave them advice, and they followed the city's advice on how to get themselves zoned for certain zoning areas. They went through an extensive process at great expense, as I outlined in material given to you previously and alluded to at the first hearing and tonight. At great expense, went through this process, over $10,000 in filing fees, advertising fees, and professional expenses, just to do what the city told them to do, to even get qualified to come and see you people for the special permit. And after going through that process, they were then, of course, required to find a place that fit in those categories, and it was determined and found that 22 Old Canal was the spot, the only spot that met those qualifications. This is in a spot in the most remote section of the city of Lowell. They are the only, this is important, this facility is the only healthcare facility that has to meet all the special requirements beyond special permit requirements. Not just what our standard special permit requirements are, additional requirements on top of that, and requirements which, in my opinion, and I think most people really looking at this, have no specificity, definitions, guidelines, or provable basis for those additional requirements. In essence, what I believe is a discrimination against people which the law designates as disabled. So, now I'm going to give you my opinion of what I heard over 3.5 hours in the discussion and whatever. I heard a lot of too close to schools, okay, when in fact those stated programs locations and enumerated other aspects don't qualify as a bar under 7.7.4. And in all due respect to my brother here, you know, lawyers are famous for giving you their own interpretation and whatever and throwing things out. It's very clear that the law department said not only, forget what all of the other case law said. If you read carefully what the law department said, they said that if those other exemptions, charter school and everything else, were intended to be included there, then that would have been in the language of the ordinance. Ordinance, by the way, not bylaws. In Lowell, we have ordinances. Towns have bylaws. And it would have been included. And they were not. Now, I said it at the first hearing, I'll say it again. Anyone who believes that the City of Lowell Law Department, the law department upon whom you rely for decision-making and information on your decision-making, if they don't agree with it, they have every right in the world to appeal. Traffic and parking, that was the next item. We showed by expert study and report that the traffic would not be increased in such a fashion as to significantly adversely impact any of the intersections involved. You've got the study, a legitimate expert study done by a well-qualified and well-respected firm who makes that conclusion. Our case law, and I don't want to get into case law and getting into citing things or whatever, but the law says there has to be a significant adverse impact in the traffic, rendering the situation almost unworkable before you can use that as a bar. Furthermore, we produced parking in the circulation plans, which showed more than 64 spaces that we have, which are more than adequate to handle the number of cars that would be coming and going to the facility at any given time. We know that because it has worked at Hall Street for more than 15 years, and there are only 16 parking spaces there off the road, whereas the proposed facility has 64 parking spaces. Well, you know, it's absolutely outrageous. It's childish behavior. I would ask, there's no reason for these people, if it begins again, I think you should clear the hall. There's no reason for these people to continue in here mimicking and throwing all these barbs and throwing all this music out. Never ran into it before in my life in this chamber, never.
Respect that. I tried to warn people.
I
so-
understand. We even show in our work product that using the same, Jesus.
Who's ever got the cell phone, please leave, will you? Whoever has it, please leave. Excuse me? Okay. All right, Mr. Ladies. We'll try third time. How's that?
We even show in our work product that using the same system and methodology that we've used at Hall Street all these years, there would never be more than 22 cars parked at the site at any given time. We did that even using the city's traffic engineers' worst case numbers of a single occupant vehicle visiting the facility, and not even taking into account what in fact happens, that there are multiple occupant. Jesus Christ. I don't care how old he is. Send the phone out of the room at least. These people are running the show.
Mr. Ladies. Gentleman's leaving, okay?
He doesn't have to leave, he just has to leave his phone outside. We did that, even using the city traffic engineer's worst-case numbers of single occupant vehicles, okay? And by the way, no other owner or tenant of any property on Stedman Street in Lowell has been required in the past, nor is currently required to meet any particular parking requirements or standards other than my client because of the special requirements put on his facility. Nobody else. They can go in there, they can go out. There's a condominium not very far, business condominium not very far from us, with 36 properties in there, 36 separate units, and they have a total of a little over 100 cars for 36 businesses. And people are holding us to a standard of when we're putting 64 cars together. All of these people went in without any requirement for a certain number of parking spaces, and in many cases knowing that they would be bringing in scores of vehicles at various times that wouldn't fit on their site. Most troubling of all is the fact that there is no expert evidence or evidence of any kind produced by any of the opposition to substantiate all of the fear-based assertions made by the opposition. And so, I was accused by Mr. Hausler of going forward on fear and emotion. Can you imagine that? That's what he said, one of the opening speakers at the other thing. I was accused of that. Just stop and listen to what all of these people talked about, okay? And so, this form of opposition that I heard based on fear and emotion, unsubstantiated by any facts or expert opinion, but based on fear and emotion of people being around children at bus stops, at playgrounds, within eyesight or earshot of children, playing to that portion of the ordinance that speaks about being in the vicinity of children, a section that never makes any attempt to define what vicinity means. Is that 5 feet, 20 feet, 300 feet across the street? The ordinance gives no definition or guideline as to what's supposed to mean by vicinity of children, or, more importantly, a justification for its inclusion of that condition. And then we get the innuendo of dangers of these people. Again, it's these people around children. Who are these people? These people around elderly centers, okay? That's what we heard about, these people. We got innuendo and innuendo over again. I produced, on the other hand, all kinds of expert materials related to this facility, its operation, the methodology, scores and scores of information related to facilities of this type. There are hundreds of these facilities operating all over the country. Did anyone produce a study or any expert information of any kind for you people to look at to say that these people are a problem, or that these facilities are a problem or a danger to or a risk to the public at large? No, zero, none. I'm sure that if there were some reliable and proven expert studies and testimony of these so-called dangers from the people, the opposition would have brought them forward. Should have brought them forward to counter the expert testimony of people like Dr. Passanen, who is one of the most highly respected physicians in our area. There was not, of all the 3.5 hours, any expert testimony put in by the opposition to counter any of the expert testimony that I put in there. And there was no material of any kind or testimony of any kind to prove that our patients would be or might even be a risk to children or elderly, whether in the vicinity Simply put, it was testimony based on prejudice, stereotyping, and unfounded fears. Where is the evidence that these patients present a severe and likely harm to the community that is directly associated with the operation of the methadone clinic? That's the kind of evidence that should have been given to you, not stories and stated fears. Again, I don't want to get into court stuff, but recent courts have indicated that it must be shown by clear and convincing evidence that the operation of the clinic would present a reasonable likelihood of significant increase in crime. No such evidence has been produced. I'm not saying that, the courts are saying that. But the most telling shortcoming of all, and the most obvious missing testimony, is the lack of any testimony from any health officials or police public safety officials in the city of Lowell. Not one piece, except for the one-page letter requested by the chairman that you're all familiar with, that says there were 5 incidents at the entire 1 Lancet Mill address, and only 2 of them were identified to Habit OPCO. One, a suicide attempt of one, or possible suicide attempt of one of their patients, and one of their patients being assaulted on their way out of the premises. Our zoning board of appeals rules require that every matter filed with the board be referred to all city department heads for review and recommendations to the board. But in this one case, probably the most important departments for you to hear from on the issue of the health facility and security and safety of the public, there was no such evidence provided to you. They get a form that the Department of Planning and Development, you know, you've seen it, is sent with every petition that's filed with you, and they are required to fill that out and indicate if they have any problems, any issues, any recommendations, and whatever. And those 2 departments were AWOL, the police department and the health department. I say then it's quite clear that in their opinion, and by the way, we have, if I may say so, probably one of the finest police departments of a city of our size in the country. That's why Ed Davis is in Boston as the chief of police there, and now being renowned for the work he's done. And Ken, thank you, in charge before he left. So it's not like they're not doing their job. It's not like they don't know what was going on at Hall Street and what may happen up there. And lastly, and most significantly, and I want everyone to pay attention to this because this is what the law says. This time I'll quote it. Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 11, the state zoning law, and I quote, "The failure of any such board or agency to make recommendations within 35 days of receipt by such board or agency of the petition shall be deemed to be lack of opposition thereto." So the record is showing, because of that, that neither the police department nor the health department has any opposition to this application. That's what the law says. And let me further say that if there was a serious crime problem or risk associated with my client's facility, you can be darn well sure that we would have heard from the police department or somebody about that, or shouldn't they have been here? Except for that separate report from the chairman, that's all we heard. Why? I'll tell you why again, because there's no such evidence. No such evidence of any danger as a result of the presence of this facility. Once again, Chapter 48, Section 11 says the failure to make a recommendation shall be deemed, shall, the most important word in the law, shall be deemed to be lack of opposition thereto. And what about the Board of Health? Where's their report? We know that Mr. Singleton has already indicated that the city faces a health crisis from opioid abuses. You have copies, I gave them to you, of the Lowell Sun article more than a year ago, in which he was urging the city and the administration and everybody that has anything to do with and knowledge of and involved with the opioid crisis to take action to fix that situation. Where's his report? Is somebody holding that back from you? I don't know. I think it's very strange that there's no such a report. So finally, Mr. Chairman, we agree with all of the modifications and conditions that the board has suggested to this point. We've made our own offers along the way, offers and modifications to accommodate the city and the board with various objections raised, without, by the way, conceding in many of these cases that those objections were legitimate or warranted. But in order to accommodate the citizens and the city of Lowell, we have offered and will continue to offer, number one, we'll start dispensing medicine earlier at 5:30 instead of 6 o'clock. Number two, we'll adjust our hours so that we don't dispense medicine from 7:30 to 8:30 when it's supposedly the busiest traffic time, even though the traffic experts say there won't be a problem. Number three, we will build, and we've given you the plan, a second access and egress and the signage to accommodate that particular method in accordance with the city traffic engineer's recommendations. Number four, use every parking space, we said that, available on the site for this facility during the hours of operation, even though we have proven we don't need them. Number five, we're even willing to build 15 more spaces or to rent an additional 20 spaces next door. Number six, we'll offer and make our parking lot available to any of the churches in the area, in the neighborhood, for use by them when our property isn't being used. Number seven, we will assure, as I said to you at the last hearing, Mr. Chairman, that no one is lined up outside the building waiting for medication. The building is 14,000 square feet. We have plenty of space to handle that. And as I indicated, and maybe I didn't make it clear enough, I heard this gentleman say he doesn't want those people on his property. We'll pick them up either at a city bus stop or any other location that is going to prohibit them, I don't think it's fair or right, but if that's what it takes, from walking on Stedman Street. And by the way, let me just point out to you again, it's the police department that's in charge of public safety and security. They saw these plans, they know what was going on, they didn't state any objection about pedestrians walking along Stedman Street. Okay. So, on the other hand, in spite of that fact, in spite of all of these facts, in spite of what we're offering to do to try to help the situation so that these disabled people are protected under the Americans with Disability Act, the city has failed to come forward with any accommodations to assist these disabled people and allow them to occupy a site they were encouraged to go to in the first place. Not one single effort to accommodate them in the process. You have the opportunity, you can fix that, and I ask you people to do that. And I thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Leites. All right, I'm going to open it up to the board at this point. Kevin.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. My comments still remain based on the May 30th meeting that it's my belief that the 7.73 refers back to 11.3.2 as far as the special permit and what's needed to deem. I'm of the opinion this is a light industrial location. I'd like to see it remain used as such. So those are my only comments further than I had last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary?
I have no further comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Corey?
Yes, you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try and be brief as possible, but Just a few statements before I do finally comment on this long road that we've all been on here. I believe this is the third hearing on this issue, and thank everybody for coming out. There's probably more people here tonight than the other two previous hearings, so I can see there's a lot of passion on both sides of this issue. But I just want a relay message to Councilor Eliades that I don't believe for a second that you bypass due process on this, for this petition. I think what the residents were alluding to in our last hearing was that the city council changed this, changed the zoning specifically for this petition, and I'm not sure if they were notified of the change in zoning, or if they were, it didn't specify for a detoxification facility. I think that was their argument. And, you know, because there'd probably be that kind of people at that hearing that would have been at the same time. So I think that was their argument. So not for a second do I think you broke the law or bypassed due process. So I do want to specify that. But you also made a comment that, you know, the burden is on the community, and you're absolutely 100% right. You know, I have to stress that, you know, I appreciate everybody coming out, but there's a bit of unfairness going on with this petition. Okay, these people have to receive their medication. Okay, I've spent countless hours on this petition. There is not so much the direct correlation of robberies and break-ins and all kinds of hoopla that's related with this. It's not as bad as perceived. So, I mean, I understand your concern. You are the neighbors, you're the butters, so believe me, I understand why you're here. But we have to find a home for these people, okay? This is our city. We cannot have these people on the street. We can't have them show up one morning, the door's locked, and they have nowhere to go. That much I do know. So with that being said, Mr. Clerk, this goes to you. I do want to make it a condition that I don't know which way this is going, but I do want the city council to be notified immediately of the decision. They have a meeting tomorrow night, and Joe, if at all possible, I'd like to see a letter, you know, brief letter, because they got a very busy agenda tomorrow, stating of the decision. If this does not go forward, we need to begin the process right away in finding a location. I don't know if this is going to be appealed. I don't know which way this is going tonight, but in the event it gets denied, we can't just sit here and wash our hands with this thing. I intend on being proactive, and we all need to be proactive on this issue. So finally, to the staff, thank you for the time, the couple hours you gave me touring the facility. You're all professionals. The problem is not internally. I've seen that it's how it's run. It's run to a T, but I'm sorry, that doesn't mean that that carries to a new location. So all in all, you know, I stated my findings, and I have made my stance a few weeks ago. Due to the location of this facility and the very far stretches in the corner of the city, I have a serious issue with accessibility for the patients, and that's who this is about. Getting them cured, making them productive citizens. That's who this is about, not us, not so much the neighborhoods, believe it or not. And I don't believe this is the best location for them to access this facility. I believe the safety concerns with no public transportation, how are they going to add no sidewalks on Stedman Street? How are they going to access this facility in an inclement weather day, due to distance, due to weather, or a combination of both? And they can't access the facility, then we're going to have problems. So an extremely difficult decision, ladies and gentlemen. And still, again, reiterate, it's all of our responsibilities. We need to find these people a home. So I made my stances. I don't want to take all night. You know, it's very disheartened. I'm going to walk out of this door with my head down tonight. Not this decision, there's no joy in. I'm not proud of. But nonetheless, I don't feel this is the right location for the patient. So I do not support the petition. Thank you very much.
Okay, Van?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, there's been a lot of discussion about this facility, and I do want to say thank you to Mr. Elias and all the information, and I want to say thank you to all the citizens and residents who came out to speak, whether against or in favor of this petition. It is in my opinion that this petition meets a lot of the requirements mandated in section 7.7. So in my opinion, I'm gonna probably, I will support this petition because they meet all the guidelines and provisions So that's my opinion on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Van. Well, I have a few different things to go over. I looked at quite a few areas that obviously I think we all agree this is, and I think I stated this the last meeting, this is brand-new territory for this board. And so the first thing I'm going to talk about is I took a look, we talked about the master plan. I also did another review of the master plan. Just a couple of things I want to point out. And these are sections within the master plan, and I'll even reference the page numbers just so for the record. On page 24, and this talks about zoning regulations. Zoning ordinances are written to protect safety within a community. Page 25, well-crafted zoning protects neighborhood character. Page 28, land use pattern comparison tables. Now, I took a look at that because it outlined all the different types of zoning, and residential obviously was number one. The industrial is actually the second. And it's my understanding, and Joe, you can correct me, within the city, are there 7 light industrial zones?
I'm not sure the exact number off the top of my head, but there are light industrial zones and also general industrial zones throughout the city.
7 light industrial zones? Yeah, I put a map in there.
The last zoning map I looked at, there's at least 7 that I could come up with. But I just wanted to throw out the comparison table that the city put in there. Then on page 106, it talks about pedestrian safety and improving pedestrian safety. Promote driver awareness of pedestrians. That's another major piece of the master plan. Page 112, Stedman Street is considered a welcome way for the city of Lowell, which is on figure 10.15. So those are just, I know, Mr. Leidy, you talked about relationship of the master plan to this. I just want to do a re-review. So those are just some comments on the master plan. Other things I took a look at was, call it observations, call it considerations, but you mentioned about the time frame the petitioner had with his current lease. For this board, that really doesn't come under our purview or requirement. Doesn't have to even be entertained by us. This next one really kind of bothers me, and this is the board's decision regarding a health crisis. If not passed, is not a requirement also of this board. To say that if we vote no, there's going to be this health crisis. I really take umbrage with that. That's been mentioned more than a few times. Economic impact. We haven't, seeing as we haven't had a site like this before in a light industrial zone, I've looked at there's a potential where a new business entity may impact existing or new businesses in this location, due primarily to the intensity of the activity. And I don't think there can be any dispute about the intensity. The location, even though the location's in a light industrial zone, the building is situated on the corner of a major thoroughfare as opposed to its current location, Hall Street, which if you look at the setup of Hall Street, there's quite a few streets that people can get to. They all have sidewalks. And it's a low visibility spot. If we look at this new site that's in the light industrial zone, this is going to be high visibility to the neighborhood and motorists traveling by this location. The logistics of the site, does create some challenges for its intended use. I made reference this evening of the communication, Mr. Leidy's, we received regarding, the request for reasonable accommodation, and you spoke to that. Well, it seems like that continually goes before this board, potential litigation, violation of the Americans with Disability Act. Again, we don't sit on this board and put that under our purview. I'll use an example, the cell towers that have come before this board. We've been run into the same situation. No matter how we vote or what our stance is, federal law mandates that cell towers. I've been kind of looking at the same type of, discussion that's happened during this, I don't think this board is trying to discriminate against anybody. The board is not treating this application any differently from the other petitions that we've entertained in the past. And we are not treating this methadone facility adversely from other uses. The next section, I'll try to get through this, but, I really, there's a lot of stuff that's involved in going through this. I then looked at the, reasons for denial, and some of the things I took a look at was, for instance, safety. Safety is part of the, what's related to the standards of this ordinance. Safety is important. Another consideration, I think I talked about the economics, but the board may consider future effects of the proper use. I know we're not entertaining it tonight, but there's talk now of the medical marijuana facilities that may come forward. I've read a few things on it. I don't know where it's going to go, but it may go into the light industrial zone also. So if we are looking at this site for this proposal, and then we have potentially another facility coming down the road, what are the potential effects of other projects in this neighborhood and to the businesses in the location? I also think you're going to find this board's going to act very fairly and reasonably on the evidence presented. Zoning, based on a lot of the readings I've undertaken, it's a local matter. It's not a federal matter. Again, I talked about the cell towers. Again, we've had to deal with these type of situations. I want to touch on the security. I appreciate the report we got. I appreciate Mr. Myers coming here. But I think Mr. Myers kind of supported some of the observations that I had mentioned. I had made my own observations. And, to me, the observations based on the activities of the individuals that work in the security, they don't give me or provide me the appearance of, if there was a major problem on that site, when I say a situation that got totally out of control, again, I'll look at Hall Street. If something got out of control, it's kind of contained. Here we are on a corner lot of a very busy street. And if we had a situation that got totally out of control, and as you had mentioned, it's on the outskirts of the city, I firmly believe that, trying to get action and it spilling out into a busy street like that, I have very huge concerns over. So in summary, one thing I didn't hear you talk about, Mr. Leites, and I think it was talked about before, and that was the actual clients, patients that are coming to the facility and are walking. I think we talked about this before. And this is the one area that I really have a lot of issues with. If we start thinking about the change of seasons, that street again, if you look at even the light poles, they're not even on each side of the street. You go up from Westford Street, and they're predominantly on the east side of the street. On the west side. If you make your way up to the same side that the location's on, you start to get a couple of them up there. But, when people are walking, as we talked about, there's no sidewalks. The other thing about Stedman Street is, and you had mentioned all the businesses that are up there, there's many driveways or access areas. So with more pedestrian traffic up and down that street, all we need is to have someone seriously hurt up there. And I can imagine the paper, how they'll put that on as a front pager, that someone that was visiting facility, I hope to God it doesn't happen, but, I don't think we need that type of fatality on this particular location to occur. Snowstorms. What are you going to do with snowstorms? Again, no sidewalks. People trying to make their way up the street. And as I had mentioned earlier, Hall Street already provides a better walking area for the clients and patients to get to. Then there's the actual motorists traveling along Stedman Street. I feel they're going to be at greater risk due to the rise in pedestrian traffic. So in summary, I really believe because of this adversity for the people that are walking to the facility, you know, the use would adversely affect the existing land use in this location, which does not serve the needs of these land uses and does not protect the safety of the patients of the petitioner and may adversely affect motorists traveling to this location on a regular day-to-day business travel. And again, I'll point out page 106 of the master plan promoting driver awareness, and page 112, Stedman Street being identified as a welcome way to the city of Lowell. So with that said, since we have 5 members here this evening, you'll need 4 affirmatives for the motion, for the petition to pass. The other thing, I guess we'll end with, Mr. Leides, we did talk about conditions at our last meeting, and I believe there was one additional condition that was read into the record. So with that said, I'd like to have a motion, please. So for a point of clarification regarding the conditions we spoke at the last meeting, do we need to reread those in, or would you want to waive the past conditions we had read in before, or do you want us to reread those again for the record? We had walked through the conditions before. I believe you...
I'll tell you what, I'll read what I believe they were. How's
Sure,
that?
that's fine. Yep.
Okay. Stormwater to the city's engineer's specification, landscaping with DPD, no signage now, dumpster to regulations, crosswalk at Old Canal and Stedman, stop sign at Old Canal, lane markings, second curb cut, in and out signs, 2 signs. And my guarantee that there would be no lines outside the building anytime. I think that,
I believe that's all of them. Joe, do you happen to have I got so many pieces of paper, I know I got it somewhere, but those sounded correct to me, Mr. Leides. I just want to...
I'll submit these if you'd like.
Oh, no, I'm just checking with Joe to see if he happens to have it in front of me. I know I have it somewhere, but...
I'd like to also submit my remarks too, since that seems to be
Absolutely.
de rigueur these days.
Sure.
The only other thing that was mentioned was for the first 30 to 60 days, developing a report to determine how traffic was arriving at the facility, so the vehicle trips versus pedestrian activity.
Yep. Mr. Leides, okay with that? And the one we're adding, was there 1 or 2? Yeah. Okay. You want to read it in, please?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the matter before us is ZBA 2013-12 for a special permit, 22 Old Canal Drive. Make a motion to approve with the conditions on the record from our previous meeting, to include a condition tonight that the city council be notified immediately of decision of this petition.
Second the motion.
Second the motion?
A roll call?
Mr. Hearn,
Deny.
Mr. Bailey,
Denied.
Mr. Belanger,
Deny?
Mr. Peck,
Approve.
Mr. Perrin.
Denied.
Okay, Mr. Leides, you've been denied on the petition, and you have the right to appeal. I'm sure you understand that. Thank you, Mr. Leides. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break before we entertain the next petition. Well, I asked him. Okay, let's, if I could have the door closed, please, just so we can keep the noise down. Okay, our next matter before us is under new business. This is ZB 2013-15. Petition is a special permit. The applicant is Hansaben. Oh, yeah, okay. Aska Kumar, sorry, Patel. Property located at 1705 Middlesex Street, and the petitions to convert space currently utilized as storage for a new adult daycare facility pursuant to Article 12, Table of Uses. Good evening, Mr. Cajun, how are you?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Attorney Brian Occasion, 1 Courthouse Lane in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. And with me tonight is Hansaben Patel, who is the president and sole officer of Active Life Adult Daycare, Inc. Also with me is Ankita Patel, she has her master's in long-term care administration, and she's going to be the COO of the company. And Parul Sanvi, who is a registered nurse and is going to be actively involved if this proposal should go forward. I was here about a year and a half ago on a very similar proposal for another building in the city. What Active Life Adult Daycare, Inc. is striving to provide is the aging and elderly of our community a place to go during the day. And it also is providing a peace of mind for the family of the elderly and the aging, that they can go to a place where they're safe and they're getting services. The services that will be provided at Active Life Adult Daycare are directed to acquiring, retaining, and improving self-help, socialization, and adaptive skills necessary to maintain a sense of independence. Under the zoning ordinance of the City of Lowell, under Section 12.3, subsection G, a special permit is required between Mr. Jinowitz and myself and the board. Previously, we termed it an other healthcare facility. And what this would be, again, is a adult daycare facility. In order to get a special permit under the zoning ordinance, the project has to be consistent with the master plan of the city. And the City of Lowell provides a framework for development and establishes a comprehensive and shared vision of the future with the following goals. The first one is that Lowell should be a lifetime city. Well, this project, being an adult daycare facility, allows residents of the city and of the greater Lowell community to continue to have a lifestyle that allows them to get out and allows them to maintain a sense of independence while also being taken care of. The second criteria of the master plan is that Lowell should have a creative workforce. Well, this proposal should have about 25 to 30 employees, and these employees shall range from RNs, dietitians, therapists, aides. Numerous vocations will be employed by this project, and it allows the City of Lowell to increase its employment base. Lowell should offer a high quality of life for both current and new residents. Again, same as being a lifetime city, it allows residents of the city to have top-notch care. And Lowell should retain an independent identity as a unique city. Even though it's close to Boston, it should be unique. And I think this proposal would be unique in the fact that this adult day care center would concentrate on serving the Indian community in Lowell. 1705 Middlesex Street is currently it's a Indian temple, and temple is just a part of what the building is. There's a community center, and a temple. And this building sits relatively vacant for most of the day. The members of the temple come at around 6 p.m. on weeknights, and then again on the weekends. So during the day, this big building sits vacant. And this daycare center would allow this building to get some use. The Active Life Adult Daycare Inc. has entered into a lease with the temple to lease out a portion of the premises. And as I'll show you later, we have developed a floor plan for the premises. Additionally, this plan, by having the new employees and the new members, will give, I don't want to say more life to Middlesex Street because it's already the preeminent business district in the city, but we'll just continue to add to the businesses that are there and increase the business that the surrounding establishments can draw from. So that's the application to the master plan. The next criteria is the neighborhood character. As I said, Middlesex Street, as we all know, is it's a suburban mixed-use zoning district. And in section 3.21 of the Lowell zoning ordinance, a suburban mixed-use zoning district, they were established to promote the development of businesses that draw their markets from citywide and regional service areas. This business will help residents of the city of Lowell as well as the community. There is a big Indian population in the city of Lowell, the town of Chelmsford, the town of Westford, and other surrounding towns. And this Indian temple is a place where they feel comfortable going to. And by servicing these individuals at a place they feel comfortable, it's a great project, and it maintains the character of the neighborhood because it's a business district. There are businesses everywhere. Montech Inc. is directly next to it, and in front of it there is an auto parts store, a post office, and other businesses, and this will just continue to be in accord with the neighborhood character. The environmental issues, there should be no environmental issues from this project. There will be approximately 125 members of the adult daycare. They will all come via cargo van and will be dropped off. The day will likely run from between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. The staff may arrive between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. and will go home between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. But the members will come in around approximately 8:45 to 9 a.m. and leave between 2:30 and 3 p.m. And again, they'll be transported by cargo vans. The traffic and access and safety. This building is set behind another shopping plaza, but there is a distinct entrance to this entity, and with the 25 employees, that'll be 20 to 25 more vehicles that'll be in the vicinity, and there will also be the vans that come in and come out dropping people off, and there should be about 10 to 12 vans. But with the improvements that have been made to Middlesex Street, with the Walgreens project and the Chinese restaurant, the traffic flow appears, in my opinion, to be better, and I think can withstand another 25 cars in the morning and 25 in the afternoon. So just to sum up the plan, I think it meets all the requirements of the master plan. But there will be 125 members. They will be mostly from the Indian community. They will arrive via vans. All the meals will be prepared on site. There's a kitchen right at the Indian temple, and the meals will be prepared there. The meals will be catered towards the Indian community, but they will also meet all the standards of the recommended dietary nutrition that the United States government recommends. I know a concern that was raised in the comments from the City Department of Planning and Development was relative to the parking. As you can see here, there's a plan that was blown up. I tried to email the plan, but it gets a little small, but there are 177 spots at the Indian Temple right now. And as I said, and this is, I know the old layout that the city had was not the current layout, but the current layout at 1705 Middlesex Street is this layout right here. And you'll see there's 177 parking spaces. Again, during the day, there are very few people at the temple. So there'll be adequate parking for the 25 employees and the 10 to 12 vans that will be there during the day. That's about 35 spots out of 177. I know another issue that was raised was relative to the Edwards soccer field, that the Indian Temple hasn't been allowing members of Lowell Youth Soccer to park at the facility. And although we are a tenant of the Indian Temple, we have spoken to the landlord, and we're going to work something out where I know the soccer people would like to park there, and there shouldn't be any objection from the temple going forward as to parking, unless they have a big event that day where they're going to use all 177 spots. So that's relative to the parking. And if I can just approach. The temple will be utilizing the rightmost, if you're looking at the building from Middlesex Street, it would be the rightmost portion of, the adult daycare would be using the rightmost portion of the temple. And there's a designated pick up and drop off spot for all the members. So there's actually a road that comes in that you can see on the side here. So they would come in and do a circle and drop off right at that door. And the members would go right in and out this entrance door and right into the facility. So that's where the pick-up and drop-off would be. Additionally, the Indian Temple is going to do the adult daycare is going to do a retrofit to the Indian Temple, whereby on this plan here, and I know it's hard to read, but there is going to be, as you come in the door where that pickup and drop-off is, there's going to be a reception area, an office. There's also going to be a media room that's created, so you can watch movies and read books and magazines. There are also going to be quiet rooms here and here. There's going to be an exercise room. There's also going to be a room with some beds in it in case someone gets ill during the day. And then there's this big open area here. And that area will be a community area, but can also be divided up with partitions depending on what's going on that day and what services need to be provided to the members. Just turning back to the parking plan, there's adequate handicap parking in accordance with the American Disabilities Act requirements. And, I believe that all the criteria established by the zoning ordinance is met by this plan, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of the board members may have.
Are there any questions, any of the members at this point for Attorney Occasion? Nope. Okay, I guess nothing at this point. Counselor, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about it, or?
No, I think I'm sure I'll think of something when there's some discussion, but I think I've addressed
I'm sure we will
everything
too,
right now.
so.
I'll try to be shorter than Attorney Eliades, though.
Yeah. No comment for the record. I'm going to open it up to the public then. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak, excuse me, in favor of this petition? In favor? In favor? Yes, sir. Favor. Anyone like to come up? All right.
Yeah, well,
State your name and address, please, for the record.
my name is Samir Patel, and I'm a Mithwan resident. It's a 2 Highwoods Drive in Mithwan. And yes, we do as a family, with my family, we regularly visit the temple on Saturdays and Sundays and any, our Hindu religion days anyway. This project they have is close to our hearts, and we really like that our adults, we leave it behind in the daytime when we go to work. This would be a great opportunity for them to go to the place they feel comfortable with and meet other adults they already know and socialize and enjoy their time. So when the evening we come back with them, we find them very happy and satisfied. And we like to see the happy faces at the end of the day every day. That is our duty too. So this project will definitely support that. And I do request that as a council members that you do support that, and that we would be very grateful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Yes, ma'am?
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to say that this project is very good for the adult parents and for the co-op families when everybody's working. The old parents, they are home and they get the companion as a pillar. They do adult activities and they will be happy. And this is our duty to see our parents have a nice, pleasant smile. And I hope this kind of daycare center, they give him more enjoy, also as well as the different food, to see the different people, more social, more religiable, and more activable. So I think everybody supports it, and also I request the city of Lowell that as usual they give the support all the time, and this time they will it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Nope. Hearing none. Anyone like to speak in opposition? In opposition? Opposition? Hearing none. That portion of the public hearing is closed. I'd like to open up to the board. Kevin?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just had a couple questions for Attorney Occasion, I guess. Days of the week that it's going to operate, I know you said 8:45 to roughly 3-ish during weekdays, or is it?
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday, okay.
Friday, yes.
You also mentioned they're going to be traveling via cargo vans from, is it a pickup location?
Well, what they do is they have 10 to 12 vans that'll go up, and people that don't get dropped off, they will go pick them up at their home and then bring them to the facility, and then when the day is over, they will drop them off at their home again.
Okay, so it's, okay, I understand. I know you said there's roughly 125 members. What's done at the facility? There's medical treatment of some sort? It's a social environment?
Yes, there'll be a dietitian, a therapist, there'll be exercise physiologists that'll work with the exercise, and then there are aides that'll, they read the newspaper. It's like a senior center.
Okay.
They read the newspaper, socialize.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the environment more so than...
That's what it's going to be.
Is there licensing involved for...
There's licensing involved through Mass Health, and they have been working they actually have been working very closely with Lynn Brown-Zunis, who runs the one on Bridge Street, and dealing with the licensing, and in order to accept any Mass Health patients that have to be licensed, and they have been working with them.
And food preparation falls under that criteria as well, I assume?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And the food preparation, again, will be done on site.
Okay. The only other comment, as far as looking at the parking plan and some of those items, I believe this, I see the handicap site, so I'm assuming that they meet code currently. I'm just wondering if it would be, and I don't know that I would require it, I'm just wondering if it would be smart to have a couple more towards the front location where there's, I think, only 2 really in front of their space from the entrance standpoint, although it sounds like most are coming by van.
Right.
Just might be something to consider. To me, it looks like there's plenty of parking for what you're proposing. It's just some more handicap spaces might be wise. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Kevin. Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on my colleague as it relates to the cargo vans, they'll remain on site at night?
They're going to remain on site at night, yes, that's my understanding. There'll be 10 to 12 of them that will remain on site.
Is it part of their inventory, so to speak? Okay.
Yes.
Total occupancy, well, you talked about 125 members. Hopefully, it'll grow as I'm sure it will. What is the occupancy of that building?
Well, that's a square footage. The actual occupancy, I'm not 100% sure of, but I know that on the Saturday night service that they have 500 to 600 church members or temple members that come to that. So it's well in excess of what we're planning to do.
Okay, so it's 125 resident clients for the day, if you will, and then staff
Exactly.
from 25 to 40, depending on the services
Right.
required.
And the building is at 6,500 square feet, so it's a large building.
It is a good facility. Just two more questions, if I may. Deliveries, so you're still going to be using the same delivery system in the dock coming in the main thoroughfare?
I believe so, yes. Nothing should change with
Nothing's
that.
going to change as far as the commercial, with your food deliveries and the like, so.
Right, exactly. And we did speak with Jim Tavares, who owns the building directly next to this building, because he has shipments that come in and out in the nature of his business. And he was supportive of this project as long as they maintained the parking and they kept that road clear. And it seems that won't be a problem.
Okay. As far as day-to-day client access driving themselves to and from, will you have a percentage of that?
I don't think they have an exact percentage as to who will be driving, but I don't think there'll be many. In my experience with the New England Community Care downtown, like 95% are coming via the vans, and that should be the case here. They're 10 to 12 passenger vans, and there's 10 to 12 of them, so they have room to pick up most of the clientele.
As far as the comments related to the parking, you're providing day-to-day services, you meet for the number of employees you have. The site certainly is a very amicable site for this type of venue, if you will. Coincide with the temple. It kind of seems like it's going to be, a little space for all families to attend religious services and spend day-to-day care with their family. And I applaud your community for doing this type of community center for yourself. It's quite commendable. I wish you the best of luck with the project.
Thank you, Gary. Corey?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'd like to start and echo Mr. Perrin's comments. Yes, this is a facility that's going to complement the temple, and I think will coexist just fine. So I have to agree with him wholeheartedly on that one. Mr. Ahern answered my questions regarding if there's any medical facility types going on, but you'll have therapists and nutrition experts, and that's outstanding. That's great. So, and as you alluded to, Mr. Occasion, it's right in tune with the master plan in the city. It enhances the lives of elder residents in the city, and it's highly accessible at the same time. Parking is not an issue. You've got, I think, an abundance of it, so to speak, and especially you're going to be transporting them in and out, and I think that's great. And you're being very neighborly. You're working with the soccer field. You're allowing them to use the field when, again, you are able. I think that's great that you're working with the, you could easily say no and put gates up and make it very difficult for them, and you choose not to. So I think it's great. I support it wholeheartedly, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Corey. Van?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is a good petition. This is something that is needed, so it's a great addition to that area, and it serves a great community need for the community. So I support this petition. Thank you.
Okay. Chairman's moving a little slow. So let's see. I believe most of the questions were already answered. Joe, I'll direct this to you. We didn't receive any comments, or I guess comments from any city departments. Has everybody been notified, and were there any comments?
Yeah, there were no other comments from any other city department.
Okay. And Council, did you mention about handicap accessible? Did you mention it is?
It is handicap
It meets
accessible.
the requirements?
It
Yeah.
meets all the ADA requirements, yes.
Yep. And then, I know you mentioned you had the comments from DPD in regards to this.
Yes.
I think the only thing was you answered about employees, hours of operation, volume of walk-in clientele. I would have.
I know there wouldn't be, you have to be registered and
minimal, yep.
be accepted by
Yep.
the establishment.
Yep. In the bus trips, it's pretty much just in and out.
In
at
and
the end of
out,
the day,
in and out,
so-
unless someone has to go visit their doctor, they would have transportation to the doctor during the day,
Okay.
but it would be, that's very minimal.
Okay. And the licensing, I know that's not here, but you talked about the licensing, that'd be through the state. That's got nothing to do with our local board, I don't believe, right? License Commission has nothing to do with, you don't have to go before.
Nothing to do with it.
Oh,
no.
yeah, you might have to. Yes, I didn't even think of that.
That was a loaded question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long night. So, Joe, the last point 3 here talked about the square footage, and I believe somebody asked, but based on the square footage and the proposed number of parking spots, the city have any issues with what's been proposed with the petition?
No, there's no other comments, just the square footage was needed just to confirm that there were enough
Yep.
parking spaces on
And
site currently.
that's been met, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, I know we've had, I know we had the one on Bridge Street come before us, and I haven't heard any adverse issues with that facility. I know there's a couple of different facilities in the city of Lowell that are actively running. I think this is a great idea. First of all, what I like is it's kind of communal. It's within an existing business that's already, not business, excuse me, the temple that's already there. It kind of makes sense to leverage that. Having gone through having elderly parents, I think it's great that they have a place that they can get together and hang out with their own people, per se, and have a lot of things to talk about. And as far as I believe this definitely meets, if we look at the criterias for the special permit, there's obviously, and I think this key is a community need that's going to be met by this petition. Traffic flow and safety, I don't see any concerns here at all. I think the counselor explained pretty much, I like the idea that it's going to be van-driven, and obviously there isn't going to be a lot of pedestrian traffic. Parking's been addressed. There's nothing to do with, excuse me, utilities, neighborhood character. I believe it fits in with, I'll call it the Middlesex Street corridor there, with the character of the neighborhood, and it even fits with the social structure with the temple right next door. No impact on natural environment, and lastly, I believe, you're providing some employment opportunities. I heard 25 to 30 individuals, which I think is great for the city. So I don't think I heard any conditions from anyone. Were there any conditions?
I don't believe so, Mr. Chairman. Any other members have any concerns?
Okay, if there's no other comments, I'd like a motion, please.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the matter before us, ZBA 2013-15 for a special permit at 1705 Middlesex Street. I make a motion to approve.
Have a second.
Second it?
A roll call.
Mr. Ahern,
Approve.
Mr. Bailey,
Approved.
Mr. Belanger,
Approve.
Mr. Peck,
Approve.
Mr. Perrin.
Approved.
Okay, Mr. Cajun, you've been approved unanimously. I wish your clients the best of luck.
Thank you, Chairman Bailey and the rest of the members. Thank you. Joe, do you want the big plans?
All right.
I'll take them off that. Say the 10th.
So our next order of business is other business, and this is for the minutes of May 30th, 2013. Are there any comments,
Good luck.
changes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes for our May 30th, 2013 meeting.
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hearn.
Approve.
Mr. Bailey.
Approved.
Mr. Belanger.
Approve.
Mr. Peck.
Approve.
Mr. Perrin.
Approve.
Okay, Joe, next meeting?
June 24th. There's a number of sign applications on there, as well as actually a home occupation special permit. It's on there. It's for a law office that someone's looking to run out of their home. What's triggering the need for the special permit is having clients actually come by appointment to their house.
Okay. And just a couple of things before we close. I want to thank you, Joe, for providing us the voluminous amount of paperwork that we got for the Old Canal petition, and I want to thank each of the board members for their hard work in rendering the decisions that they did. And with that said, like a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Second it.
So moved.